Hi, Sophia. I see that you've joined. Let's wait. Let's give other people a few minutes to join.
Okay. Oh, Miss Roberts, I did want to let you know about my Cengage access. I'm trying to purchase the book, but I have to meet with my advisor because there's something wrong with purchasing it. So I'm trying to do that.
Okay. Send me an email.
Okay, we'll do. Meet with my advisor because there's something wrong purchasing it. So I'm trying to do that.
Okay. Send me an email.
Okay, we'll do. Meet with my advisor because there's something wrong.
Divine, Philip, Sophia. While we wait for others to join us, let's do some mental exercise. Just a quick recap of what we have covered in say module 1 or module 2. So what I want you to do is to take out your mobile phones or open a new tab and go to joinmyquiz.com. See, go to joinmyquiz.com and enter the code. Go to joinmyquiz.com and enter this code. So go to joinmyquiz.com and enter the code. All right, when you join, we will start. Divine, Milton, Philip, Sophia. I want you guys to go to joinmyquiz.com. And when you get there, good. I see Divine is in, Sophia is in, Milton, Philip. We're waiting for the two of you.
It's Devin.
Devin, okay. Devin. Devin is in. Sophia is in. Milton, Philip, I want you both to join as well. Just going to do this for about 4 minutes.
Do you see my name popped up?
Yeah, I see you, Philip. I see you. I see you, Philip. While we wait for others to join, let's do this mental exercise. Miguel, we're doing some mental exercise covering the things that we've done before in class. So go to joinmyquiz.com and enter the code. Enter the code on joinmyquiz.com to participate. Okay, Greg, we're doing some mental exercise covering what we've learned in class before now. So go to joinmyquiz.com and provide the code in order to participate. Go to joinmyquiz.com, put the code 842550 to participate.
I got it. I'm in here now. Thank you.
Okay, very good. You're welcome. We'll give it another 5 minutes and we get started. I didn't know what was going on. I was not seeing active progress or progress as I would expect. So here is my question. I'm going to look at the questions. Although majority didn't get to respond, but I want to look at some of the questions people got wrongly.
I had a question about that first one. What's the difference between a security manager and a security administrator?
Very good. That's a good question. So this first question says that you have excellent technical acumen, right? And part of your responsibility where you work include overlooking daily operations as well as analyzing and designing security solution in a specific area. You encounter a situation that needs to be escalated. Which of the following are you most likely to approach with the situation? Well, at the end of the day, for the most part, you want to go to the security manager because in order of hierarchy, you have the security manager before the CISO. Now, when you talk about security administrator, the security administrator is only responsible for configuration. So I want to create an account, a user account. You want to create a system administrator account, or you want to make security configurations, changes to security configurations. The security administrator will be responsible for that. However, the security manager will be responsible for operations, administrations, not necessarily configuration. It's more so a people manager and a tier 3 escalation path, right, in security operations. Okay. So I would really recommend that you go back to the content that we've covered, because we covered the CIA triad, we covered IAAA. I do not believe that anyone should get this uh wrongly, right? This questions wrongly. So I would strongly recommend that you revisit some of those contents that we have covered. And to find those recording, once you go to Canvas, on Canvas, and you go to Panapto videos, you will see the recording of all of the previous classes. You will see the recording of all the previous classes. So I recommend that you revisit those. During the last class, we started talking about cryptography. All right, talked a lot about cryptography, the different kinds of cryptography. Is anyone in class that have a remembrance of what we covered and can do a high-level summary for us? Who can summarize for us what we covered during the last class? Go ahead, Philip.
No, my hand touched the.
You haven't touched it.
But I know it's about like hashing, and I know we cover hashing.
Mhm.
We do a little about how would encrypt with the same hashing the same way.
Yeah,
But
so we talked about different kinds of cryptography. We may specifically mention three. Who remembers what those three are?
Do you mean like asymmetric,
Yeah,
symmetric?
yeah, and hashing, right? We talked about the different kinds of encryption. We talked about asymmetric and asymmetric encryption, and finally we talked about hashing. So, from your recollection, right? What is the difference between asymmetric encryption and symmetric encryption? Or more so, the difference between asymmetric algorithm and symmetric algorithm?
An asymmetric algorithm requires two keys, and a symmetric
Perfect.
requires one.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Asymmetric requires two keys. Is a pair. One is public and the other is private. And we did say that if you encrypt with one, you decrypt with other. If you decrypt with one, you encrypt with the other, right? So I'm going to share some scenario, and I want you to tell me what you will do or what should be done in that scenario. We're talking about hashing, encryption, asymmetric and symmetric, right? But I want you to tell me, when I share this scenario, I want you to tell me what the ideal thing to do is. Is the ideal thing to hash or to encrypt? Remember, what we did, the lab that we did in class, where we hashed a sentence, I love Security Plus class. When we hashed it, it produced an output. And then we added a period at the end of this sentence, and it produced a separate output, right? And the hashes, when we compared the two hashes, it didn't match, right? So I want you to tell me the ideal real world scenario of hashing, or when I share the scenario, tell me whether that scenario should use hashing or the scenario should use encryption. So take, for example, you want to protect passwords in a database. You want to protect passwords in a database. Should you encrypt or should you hash? Should you encrypt or should you hash? If you think it's hashing, type H in the chat. If you think it's encryption, type E in the chat. Very good. Why? Why? Does anybody want to share why they think it should be hashing and not encryption? Go ahead, don't be shy.
I would say hashing because you're keeping that data for yourself.
Okay.
It's not like, and if you were sending that data to someone else, you would encrypt it.
Okay. What if it is, where does encryption at rest have, what factor does encryption at rest have to play? Remember, we talked about encryption at rest and encryption in transit, which means that when something is at rest, when data is at rest, especially if it is sensitive data, you should encrypt it at rest. But when it is in transit too, you should encrypt it while it is in transit, while you are sending it from a source to a destination. But then, why would you rather hash a password than encrypt that password? Okay. And the simple reason is because the password is used for authentication. All right. Remember, when I explained hashing to you the last time, I said if this I love security plus was your password and you mistakenly write I love security plus class and put a period in front of it, you will not be authenticated. Why? Because when that account was created, your system has saved the hash value of the original password. And when you create when you supply a different password, it generates the hash value of what you have supplied and compares that, right? So hashing is ideal because it is an integrity, it requires authentication, and authentication is more so doing an integrity check. What I have versus what is supplied, which do they match? Yes, they match. They don't match, then no authentication will be allowed. Okay. So another one, right? If, for example, you are sending a private message over the internet, I think Philip already answered this. If you are sending a private message over the internet, should that be encrypted or hashed? If it is encryption, type an E. If it should be hash, type type H. Encryption. Very good. Very, very good. What if you want to verify the integrity of a software before you install it? So you get this software and you want to install the software on your computer. You want to verify that the software does not have any malicious code embedded in it, right? It is as the manufacturer or as the builder built it. Will you use encryption or hashing? Verifying software integrity before you install. Will you hash or will you encrypt? If you think it is hashing, type H. If it is encryption, type E. Come on, guys, let's move. Devin says it's hashing. Ahmed says it's hashing. Milton says it's hashing. And I will agree with them. I will agree with them. Okay. I will agree with them because hashing is often used for integrity check. You want to calculate, like I said, also, it is often used even in digital forensics. Because, you know, um, the evidence that is collected during an incident must be admissible in the court of law. So if someone's using mobile phone to commit fraud and the first responder seizes that mobile phone, they want to make sure that they secure that mobile phone in such a way that the evidence they will pull from it is admissible in the court of law. Okay, and that's where action comes. So one of the investigators wants to pick up the phone and find out information. The hash of the hard drive needs to be calculated from before and after to make sure that they have not tampered with the evidence. Hence, they keep something that is called chain of custody. Okay. All right, so we talked about asymmetric encryption, right? Said there's a key pair, there are two keys, a key pair. We're going to pick things up from there. There was a video I showed you in the last class. I will start with that video again, and then we will we will dive deep into all the application of cryptography. From digital signature to digital certificate to public key infrastructure, what actually makes up these asymmetric algorithms. And we would also talk about a hybrid approach where we will use both symmetric and asymmetric. And why would we want to use the two? We said that one of the major challenge with symmetric algorithm is that the key needs to be shared in a secure way. It's just like you have a locker and you have a key to the locker. Like if somebody steals your key, that means that whatever you have in that locker is going to be stolen or compromised. All right. And if you want someone else to gain access to your locker, you have to find a secure way of handling that that's key to them, right? That's why we have lock boxes and combinations, or rental or properties that are going to be sold and things like that. A secure way of sharing the key, because we know if the key gets into the wrong hands, some squatters may just get into the building. So that challenge is what, hold on, seems like there's someone who is trying to enter the class. That challenge is what asymmetric algorithm seeks to help resolve. Okay. So by the end of this class, you will be able to understand what digital certificate is. It is pretty much one of the most useful or most application of asymmetric algorithm. You will also understand what is called public key infrastructure. And that's everything that powers the asymmetric algorithm. Then we'll talk about list of secure communication and transport protocols. Because as a security professional, you're thinking more so not so much of how to get things done, but how to get it done securely. I want to pass an information across to you. Is it okay for me to scream across and it's confidential information? Is it okay for me to scream across the room? You still hear me, but that would mean that others will hear me as well. Or do I just pick my phone from the corner of the room that I am and place a call across to you? Even though there's everybody in the room, you and I are speaking on the phone, and chances have that we can communicate securely. I can pass that information to you securely. So even though in both ways is communication, one is more so communicating securely than the other, especially where you are transferring sensitive information and there are so many people in the room. So we'll talk about secure communication and transport protocols. Then we will talk about how to implement cryptography. Okay. Before we continue, what are your questions? Questions before we continue? All right. So this is module 4, right? Tomorrow is module 5. And hopefully we could just get a module completed each time we come to class so that by the end of the month, we will have completed all 15 modules. I think we are moving at a good pace. We might need to combine some modules that I believe really align, like incident response and vulnerability management. So please just stay locked in, okay? So let's talk about digital certificate. I showed us an example of digital certificate. It is better explained when you see it in action. So digital certificate, before I even dive into the details, I was sharing with us this video from the last class, and I would love for us to pick up from there again, and then I will help enlighten us more on digital certificate. Yes, this one. Let me know if you hear it. Can you guys hear it?
No.
No, okay. So I need to share my sound. Share sound and share. Okay. So let's do it.
Welcome to Tech Talk. Today,
Do you hear it?
Yes.
Okay. So think about it as a situation where you want to start a new business or you want to open your own website, right? Whether it's commercial or personal website. You have content you want to host and things like that. You will register your domain and you want the communication on your domain to be secure. So you will go through this process naturally, unless the company, you have a host company that has gone through that process on your behalf. But this is the ideal. This is traditional way. You have your servers in your data center or in your office or in your server room, and you are hosting content you want the world to have access to, but you want them to be able to access your servers securely. And so you want to ensure that the communication is secure. There are also situations where you will find devices or servers that are not secure online. I will teach us, I'll show us tools to find servers that hackers actually use to find servers that are insecure. But for the purpose of this class, let's talk about how to secure your own web infrastructure. Yeah.
today's topic is public key infrastructure. Before we finish, you're going to know what it is, why it's important, and how it works. And with me is Jeff, the security guy. I want to explain why I wanted to pick up this topic. Last week, I was setting up a website, and I wanted to get a lock icon that people expect in the web browsers, right?
Sure.
Because if you don't see that, in fact, some web browsers, they put up a warning. They say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? This could be sketchy, right? And so I was going through those steps, and I pretty much just followed a run book. And that involved first generating like a public.
So where's the lock icon? The lock icon right here. Everybody see the lock icon? That's an example. All right. So let's continue.
And private key. And then from there, I created a certificate request, which I sent to a certificate authority. And then finally, I got my certificate, okay? Which I then installed on the web server. But I really didn't understand how it worked. And so could you explain that to me?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that was happening when you did this is you generated this key pair, a public and private key. Well, there's this thing that we call asymmetric cryptography. Asymmetric because there's two keys involved. They're mathematically related with this special property that whatever you do with one of the keys, you can only undo with the other. So if you encrypt the message with one of the keys, then you can only decrypt the message with the other, and vice versa. Then what you're doing is you arbitrarily choose one of those and say, this one is my private key. I am going to guard that like the keys to Fort Knox. It's going to be super secure. I'm not going to tell anyone.
In my case, I ended up putting it in as a root user. It was only accessible that way.
Sure. That's a typical way if you're storing it from a software perspective. An even more secure way to do it would be to store it in hardware on a secure enclave, a special chip that never even exposes the key to the storage.
Or even the admin
memory.
For that matter.
Exactly. Okay. No one can see it. It stays only inside there, and all of its operations are performed in the secure chip.
Got it. So let's go on then.
So there's a private key. That one you keep, totally secret. The public key is just the opposite. You tell the entire world. You don't care. Who knows what your public key is? Because the beauty of asymmetric cryptography is that even if someone knows this, they have no way to reverse engineer practically to get to that. So giving that public key information out basically tells the world how they can communicate with you, but doesn't reveal anything about your private key.
A little true confession here. I have to admit that I always thought a public key was just doing for decryption, and the other was used for encryption.
Yeah.
You're saying that's not true?
It's not true. It's a reasonable assumption, but it's not the case. In fact, the math behind this doesn't know which one you chose as public or private. It doesn't care. You encrypt with one, you decrypt with the other. And it's an arbitrary decision at the time that you designate which is which.
Before we leave that, what would symmetric encryption come into play here?
Yeah, so symmetric cryptography is similar but different. With asymmetric, we have two keys. That's the asymmetry. One's public, one's private. With symmetric, we have only one key. That one key is used to encrypt. That one key is used to decrypt.
Does double duty. Okay.
Exactly. So it's symmetric. It has symmetry. It's the same key on both sides. If I send you a message that I've encrypted with this particular symmetric key, the only way you can decrypt it is to use the very same symmetric key.
But that presents a problem for me getting that symmetric key to you, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So the advantage to symmetric key cryptography is that it's relatively efficient. It's fast compared to asymmetric, which is much, much slower. The downside with symmetric is exactly the problem you said. If I generate a key and I encrypt a message with it, now I need a way for you to know what that key is. And if I just sent you the key in an email, someone might intercept it. If I come up with some other kinds of means to send that to you, then there are all different kinds of problems. So that's why we use asymmetric cryptography as a way to communicate and transmit the symmetric key.
Oh, I see. So, for example, if I want to get you the symmetric key, I first encrypt it with an asymmetric key, send that to you, and then you can decrypt it with my public key.
Exactly.
And then I see, and then you have that symmetric key that we can then use to do fast exchanges.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this is why you can use both and each one for what it's good for. So the PKI, the public key infrastructure part, refers to this asymmetric. And what that really solves for us is the key distribution problem that was left over by using symmetric key cryptography.
Okay, great. I got that. So have that now, my public-private key. I've done my certificate request, which has a bunch of information like, the website you're going to use, the admin contact information, stuff like that. I fill out that certificate request, and it goes to a certificate authority. And I get finally my certificate. What is going on in this certificate that is going to work back on my web server? What's going on behind the scenes?
So it's important to understand that the main thing that's in your certificate is this, your public key. That's the information, and the certificate is the way of conveying that. The certificate is a way that is a trustworthy way of conveying to the world what your public key is, because if I want to send you that message that only you can get, then I've got to encrypt it with your public key. But how do I know what your public key is? I'm going to take it from your certificate.
Okay. So let's see. How do we find public keys? You find public keys in website certificate. Where is the website certificate? It is right there by the URL. You go here, view the site's information, then go to where you have that lock icon that says connection is secure. You click on it, and it says the certificate is valid. Your connection is secure. Your information, for example, password, credit card number, is private when it is sent to this site. So you will click on the certificate, and guess what you see? You do a pop-up like this. From here, look at the connection, and click on this, and then it shows the certificate. Now, inside of the certificate, just from the overview of the certificate, you'll see who the certificate was issued to, who issued the certificate, and the validity of that certificate, when it is going to expire. This one is set to expire on the 7th of September. And then, more importantly, you see the public key, because that's how YouTube, Google shares YouTube's public key with the entire world. Okay, so that's the public key right there. Let's continue.
And the certificate authority, which was given my public key, how do they verify, like when I create my web browser, how does it verify that this actually came from them?
Yeah, so it's going to ask a bunch of questions, and it's going to populate the certificate with your answers to those questions. But ultimately, if the certificate authority, this guy right here, that we refer to as a trusted third party, the certificate authority is someone that you trust and someone that I trust. So I don't have to trust you, I just have to trust the certificate authority that the certificate it gave me is in fact yours.
When you click that lock,
so think about this like you're traveling, right? And you get to TSA, and they ask for your means of ID, and you provide your passport or you provide your driver's license. It's not like they are actually trusting you that the driver's license that you provided is, original and not fake. They are actually trusting MVA, right? So I've gone through the right process of validating who you are, your age, your biodata, your address, and then they get that and validate that this is original. So you trust MVA to validate you. TSA trusts MVA to provide authenticatable, if there's anyone like that, validation. All right?
lock icon.
Someone that I trust. So I don't have to trust you, I just have to trust the certificate authority that the certificate it gave me is in fact yours.
When you click that lock icon, it actually shows you a list of all the authorities that were used to authenticate that, and shows a chain of
trust. Exactly.
Right. Okay.
because you may have multiple certificate authorities. This certificate authority is trusted by another, and so forth. As long as all of those chain of certificate authorities trust each other, then the certs that they issue will be trusted as well.
And I don't have to go back to the certificate authority for each browser request, right?
In fact, you don't. That's the beauty of this. You could store all of these in a central database, and that could be at the certificate authority, but it doesn't have to be. You could, in fact, store these certificates anywhere. I could send it to you in an email. It doesn't matter how I get it to you, as long as I get it to you. The information in here is secure, and we know it's secure because it was vouched for by the CA.
So it had a signature on it.
That's where we get this thing we call a digital signature.
Right. I've heard that phrase used quite a bit. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, so with a digital signature, that's the way the CA, once it's been satisfied that this is in fact your actual cert, and that is in fact your public key, and you are in fact who you claim to be, then the CA will basically sign and in that all of these things are true. The way it does that is it runs a special algorithm against the cert, a thing called a hash. So we have a hashing algorithm that's run that summarizes the information here. If anything changes in here, the hash value would change dramatically. So the CA runs this hash to verify what the message is. Then it uses, guess what? Its private key to encrypt that hash value.
Which I can then decrypt with
Yes.
the public key.
Exactly. You know the CA's public key because it's baked into your browser in advance. So that's how the whole process bootstrapped. And so we're using the same techniques that we're using to communicate the keys. We're using that same PKI infrastructure in order to do digital signing and in order to create a system of trust.
I think we've covered it now. That was the how, the why,
Yeah.
and the what. So there it is. We're going to wrap on that. If you'd like to see more tech talks, maybe with Jeff or on other topics, be sure and leave us a comment below. And also, please remember to subscribe so we can keep bringing you cool content like this.
Thank you, guys. So these guys, they do a good job. I like the way IBM break things down. So if you like, you could just go to IBM's website or their YouTube handle, and they talk about a bunch of stuff. So that's the long story short of how digital signature works. So a digital signature is pretty much a proof that a document originated from a valid sender. As simple as that. It is signed. You know, it's just like you signing your signature on a check or a letter. Now, the weakness of digital signature is that it can only prove that the private key of the sender was used to encrypt the digital signature. An imposter can actually post a public key under the sender's name. You wouldn't know. That is where the trusted third party comes in with the digital certificate. And so the digital certificate is mostly technology that is associated to the user's identity. You know, just the way when you want to get a driver's license, MVA does all the background checks. They look at your size, they do the knowledge check, they do the road test, they do all sorts of checks, and also even validates where you actually live, right? It's the same way when you want to request that for a digital certificate from a certificate authority. In fact, there are two bodies. There's the registration authority. The registration authority is where they are the ones that will complete all those background checks. And then the certificate authority will sign that this background check is in fact completed and they are validating it. So they sign it. Now, that's why, for the most part, it's often a little difficult. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's often a lot difficult for imposters and hackers to get digitally signed websites. And so one of the key to know whether a website is fraudulent or not is to look at that site. When you take a look at a site, you will definitely know whether that site is secure. If I check, I always receive tons of fraudulent emails all the time. So for example, if I do this and go to PayPal, go to PayPal, where is mine? I can type PayPal. If I type PayPal, I'm sure that, let me see something that has attachment. There are definitely, can't find any, right? Like, for example, take a look at this. So this one, well, they sent me a PDF. Chances are that the PDF is malicious. But what sometimes they will send a link, and when you open the link, you just realize that that link is insecure. Okay. So the digital certificate really helps with ensuring that with doing background checks of people who actually build websites, set up legitimate websites, get them registered, and have them go through authentication process. The CAs, these are the certificate authority. They are the entities that actually have the tools for managing the certificate. Like I said, the registration authorities, they are the one that verify the authenticity of the users, while the certificate authority signs off on it. So once the verification, the registration authority verifies, they transfer it to the certificate authority. And that request becomes processed, and that a digital certificate is issued. And so the process of signing that request is called a certificate signing request. And so once that certificate signing request is done, then the certificate is issued. Now, there's a repository, a public repository, where all certificates that have been issued are is available or is made available. And the protocol is a protocol for communicating that. The protocol for communicating digital certificate is called Online Certificate Status Protocol. So what your browser or your computer is doing in real time is to look up the status of a certificate, all right, to see whether the certificate is still valid or not. Certificates can be revoked. There is a list called a certificate revocation list. You could Google certificate revocation list. It's a list of digital certificates that have been revoked, either because it is expired, or either because it has been known for fraudulent activities. Sophia, you have your hands raised, ask questions. All
Hi.
right. Also, feel free to put your question in the chat if you don't want to talk, or you can unmute yourself. Go ahead, Sophia.
I was gonna ask if you can go back to the online certificate status protocol,
Yes.
and I wanted to ask if that's the only type of protocol that they have, or is this just the main one?
This is the main online certificate status. The OCSP is the main protocol for looking up certificates.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but there is a variation of it. It's not a different protocol, but just a variation where web servers will send queries to the OSCP responder server at regular intervals. So while the OSCP itself is more so real time, servers can actually send OSCP queries to the OSCP responder server to get an updated signed certificate from time to time. instead of looking it up at the point of use in real time. Certain servers will use this stapling protocol on hourly basis, on per minute basis, depending on how it is scheduled, to determine whether or not, to determine the status of web, of digital certificates, I should say. Okay. Right. So again, the certificate repository is often a publicly accessible. You could Google certificate repo, you see certificate repo. A lot of times our computers will normally download. In fact, if you do search for certificates on your computer, you will see all the computer certificates, or all the certificates that your computer have downloaded. So your computers also keep a record of a repository of certificates. Okay. Then again, we have certificate revocation list. These are lists of digitally signed certificates that have been determined to be revoked. Revocation, like I said, can happen for many reasons, whether the certificate is no longer used, whether the details have changed or the user's address has changed, or maybe the public key has been lost or it has been exposed. Okay, right. So, and when it comes to certificates, Sophia, feel free to lower your hands if it's from before. So when it comes to digital certificates, there are different categories of digital certificates, and the most common categories of digital certificates are the root certificates, domain certificates, and hardware or software certificates, right? And the process of verifying a digital certificate or verifying that a digital certificate is genuine depends on the certificate chaining. Now, a lot of times the beginning, not a lot of times, the beginning point of a chain is often the root digital certificate. And that is often created and verified by the certificate authorities. There are certain situations where organizations have self-signed certificates. All right. And the self-signed certificate, they do not depend on any upper level authority. It is created by the organization, signed by the organization, and often used internally within the organization for servers to communicate internally within the organization. Okay. The final point on the chain is the user's digital certificate itself. The user digital certificate itself. And if we take a cue from here and look at this certificate again, well, this is Cengage, and this is a certificate hierarchy. We can see that Amazon is their root CA. See, Amazon root CA1, all right? And then the down chain, the bottom here, this *cengage.com. This particular one identifies the server hosting the content that we are on. But you see, the root certificate is Amazon, but then they digitally signed using their RSA, they digitally signed the Cengage server. Okay, so obviously this is not a self-signed certificate. This is a certificate chain that started from the root and we saw it to the server. All right. Okay. This is packed with all the information regarding the certificate, the version number, the serial number of the certificate signature algorithm, who issued it, common name, organization name, the location, we'll see that. The validity, that is the date, it was issued and the date it will expire. All right? All of the public key algorithm that is used, the public key in of itself, we'll see all the details here. Then we see the authority key ID, the certificate subject key ID, the certificate subject alternative name, certificate policies, the key usage, all of the certificate revocation list distribution points. So if it has been revoked, you will see all of that here. Then more importantly, the public key. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna close this. That was an example I showed you. Sometimes you will see certain examples from your computer as well. For example, from my computer, you'll see if I go to my root certificate, you see the different AAA certificates, the certificate path for this. It says is okay. This exact path is what we see here, right? So the computer also maintains a list of digital certificate for applications for websites that we visit. That one was from my own computers. Okay. So certificates. Okay. And the web server digital certificate perform two primary functions. They ensure the authenticity of the web server to the client. What is the client? The client is your browser. And your browser is communicating with the host server. In the case of Cengage, it's Cengage. If you go to TikTok, TikTok is hosting their server, but your computer is communicating to their server and making requests through the browser. So your browser is the client and their server hosting the content is the web server. Okay. It also ensures the authenticity of the cryptographic connection to the web server. So making sure that the connection is secure. Okay. There are several types of domain digital certificates. For example, domain validation digital certificate, extended validation digital certificate, or wildcard digital certificate. And then we also have subject alternative digital certificate. For example, the wildcard one, I would need to refresh this page. For example, the wildcard one is more so a type that can be used on multiple servers. Okay, so this is how the communication often happens. Your browser is the client. The server is the company's server. So think of this as maybe TikTok. So from the web browser, which is your mobile phone or your Google Safari, your Google Chrome, your Brave, your Microsoft Edge, whatever browser you use, you're going to TikTok.com. So you open your URL, you type TikTok.com, right? And that the OSCP is used in real time to validate whether there is a digital certificate for this web server. Once it sees that, oh, there is a public key, and so with that public key, it looks up the digital certificate, it looks up it gets the public key and communicates with the web server. So the client's hello is going to the server, and then the server is also, remember, the public key is used to encrypt the information that goes to the server. Then upon getting to the server, because the server has the private key, the server encrypts its response, sends a server hello, encrypts its response with its private key, knowing fully well that the web browser has its public key. And so once it gets back to the browser, the decryption happens using the public key. All right. So it says, oh, these algorithms support the server digital certificate. And then the web browser verifies the certificates and the master secret. And then it goes back. That's how the communication goes back and forth between the web server and the client. Okay. When it comes to hardware and software digital certificate, a lot of times, when you download and install software, it is actually important to ensure that the software that you are downloading and installing, they are the software that the OEMs actually put out. So because for example, say, let me look at this tool right here. This is a tool that you use for installation, your CI/CD pipeline. Use it pretty much for installation. Now, let's assume that I want to download and install this tool. All right. It's called Helm. So if you go here, wanting to download your desired version. So let's assume, if you look at it now, let's assume that I use Mac. What do they provide here? They provide the hash value, the checksum. This checksum is the same thing as hash value. They provide the hash value of the software that they have published. This is the software right here. If I click on it, it will download, and they provide the hash value. If upon downloading, are you with me? If upon downloading this application, I attempt to generate the checksum or to generate the hash value, and it doesn't match what they have provided here, that simply means that that code has been modified. Maybe an attacker has embedded a malware on that, or something has changed about the original software that they published. So you see here, they say this release was signed by at G Jenkins 8 with this key, which can be found at this location. Please use the attached signature to verify this release using GPG. All right. So if the checksum, when you download it and you try to generate the checksum, and it does not match what they have provided, then it is malicious. Don't even go for it. So if they are said that this is the checksum, and that's exactly what software code signing is. They provided an hash value to say, hey, if you calculate the hash and it doesn't match this, then there is a problem. Right? The same thing goes for computers as well as email digital certificates as well. Okay. Well, the digital certificates have attributes The format of the digital certificate is X.509, and the most recent version is version 3. There are several certificate attributes that make up the digital certificate. We saw them just now, like the certificate validation period, the hand host identity information, the encryption keys that will be used for secure communication, the signature of the issuing certificate authority, and even the common name of the device that is being protected. We saw that in the certificate, in the Cengage certificate a moment ago. So here's a question. What technology is used to associate a user's identity to a public key and has been digitally signed by a trusted third party? Is that a digital signature, digital certificate, digital code book, or digital signing repository? If you think it's digital signature type A, B, C, or D, A, B, C, or D. Exactly what we've been talking about. It is the technology that is used to associate a user's identity to a public key and has been digitally signed by a trusted third party. Now, what is PKI? My friends over at IBM have done a good job of helping us understand what PKI is. When you say PK, public key, public key simply means the asymmetric algorithm. Then with the high in front of it is the infrastructure. So infrastructure is pretty much everything that is involved, hardware, procedures, processes, policies, that is involved in the creation, management, distribution, use, storage, revocation of digital certificates across large user population. Let's take 5 minutes break and pick things up from here. Let's take 5 minute break. 5 minute break? Yeah, 5 minute break. I'll be right back. Patience. I was in the restroom. That's okay. A little more than I envisaged. Can you all hear me? Are we back? Oh.
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, very good. Okay, all right. So, public key infrastructure is pretty much everything that makes up the digital certificates. So it's the software, it's the hardware, the process, procedures, and policies that are needed to create the certificates, manage them, distribute them, some of which we've talked about, use them, store them, revoke those digital certificates across larger user population. So this is at scale, right? And what does this mean? One of the things that makes up these PKI, this infrastructure, is the trust model, right? Like this trust model that I explained earlier between the TSA at the airport and MVA. So trust pretty much is the confidence or reliance on another person or entity. In this case, there is a trusted third party which is the certificate authority. Okay. So this trust model is really the relationship that exists between individuals and entities. There's what is called direct trust. Direct trust is when one person knows the other person. But then there's also third-party trust. Third-party trust refers to a situation where two individuals, they trust each other because they trust one third party. So, CSA trusts me because they trust MVA, right? That's exactly, so we have mutual third party that we both trust. That is the third party trust. Then the web of trust model is based on direct trust, where each user signs a digital certificate, then exchanges certificates with all other users. Okay, that's the web of trust. And there is the hierarchical trust model. That's what we saw right here with Amazon being the root and signing Cengage's server. Okay, so the hierarchical trust model assigns a single hierarchy with one master CA called the root. That's what we just saw right now. So the root signs all digital certificate authorities with a single key. Then we have the distributed trust model. The distributed trust model is where there are multiple CAs that sign the digital certificate. So it eliminates whatever limitation that the hierarchical trust model had. Then we have bridge trust model. This is similar to the distributed trust model, where one certificate authority acts as this facilitator to interconnect all other certificate authorities. So this, in other words, allow for a model where all CAs can be connected together. So here is a visual diagram of what the hierarchical trust model look like. Okay. The distributed trust model, you see there is a certificate authority, there are intermediate certificate authorities as well that are connected through more so distributed, decentralized. Then here's where you have a bridge trust model. There's a bridge CA between two different certificate authorities. And the certificate authorities can either be distributed or hierarchical. It doesn't matter. But the bridge CA is the one that is connecting all of them together from a trust perspective. Okay. Then policy-wise, right? The certificate policy is the set of rules that govern the operations of the public key infrastructure. So this policy actually provides the baseline security requirements. What is required for the CAs, for the what policies should the CAs adhere to, what policies should the registration authority adhere to, and the PKI component, what policies the PKI component must follow. Okay. Then there is the certificate practice statement, which is a technical document that describes how the CA uses and manages the certificates. Is more like your privacy state, where you see privacy statements of organizations. All right, so the practice statement covers the digital certificate, how to issue them, how the CA is issuing those digital certificates, how they will revoke, or the factors they will consider in revoking digital certificates, the procedural controls that are involved, and how they manage the key pairs. Okay. The life cycle of a certificate is divided into four: from creation to suspension in case there is a violation, to revocation in case of expiration, or other reasons like maybe the key, as the public key or the private key has been stolen. Not public key, the private key has been stolen or exposed, then to expiration. Yeah. All right. So we all know that the security of a cryptographic algorithm is really more so based on how secure the key is. So public keys are often stored, or they are often embedded in the digital certificate, like we saw. The private key will be stored on the user's local system. So for software-based storage, they may expose the key so that it is known to everyone. But then the hash value, like we saw with like I showed you earlier. But then calculating the hash and doing hash comparison is where the security really is. Okay. An alternative is also to store the key in hardware or smart cards or tokens. Right. And multiple pairs of dual keys can also be created. So where one pair is used to encrypt information, the public key can be backed up to another location, while the second pair will be used only for digital signature, and public key in that pair will never be backed up. Okay. When it comes to key management, keys need to be properly managed, because The key, it forms the basis upon which the security, apart from the algorithm, the security of the algorithm is solidified. So when it comes to keys or managing keys, keys can be escrowed. So take, for example, you build a solution for me or for my company, and there needs to be a third party, or you hire a third party to keep the key, just like you escrow your um, property insurance or your taxes, right? You can escrow the keys. Keys expire. When keys do expire, again, there are policies the organization set up actually for key management. These are key management policies. They state the organization's principles or the organization's rules around expiration, around renewal of keys, around key revocation, around recovery of keys, suspension of key, or even destruction of keys. So a lot of times, most organizations will have their rules, their own practices around how key is managed. You can actually take a moment and go to ChatGPT to say, hey, generate key management policies. And it will cover all of these aspects of key management. All right. Any other question? Okay. Let's answer this question, and then I will answer questions that you may also have. So DAG wants to set up a trust model in which E only will serve as a CA. Which trust model should E use? Which model should E use? Bridge trust, distributed trust, hierarchy trust, sole trust. A, B, C, or D, guys? There's nothing like sole trust, Philip. There's nothing like sole trust. It is hierarchical trust, and that was what I showed you here, right? From this hierarchy, you see the root CA was just one, right? That's hierarchical trust model, is where an organization use one CA. Only one CA is responsible for signing their digital signature. Okay. Before we continue, what are your questions before we start to talk about secure communication and transport protocols? What questions do you have? Let's see, what are your questions before we start to talk about secure communication and transport protocols? What questions do you have? Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, you're in a in a room, where everybody is, and you want to communicate confidentially to someone in that same room, but you don't want every other person in that room to hear it. Would you scream? If you scream, the person you're talking to will hear, but then other people will hear it as well. Or should you pick up the phone and call them, right? So this is where secure communication and transport protocols come in. The protocols needs to be secure. The means by which communications occur needs to be secure. And so when we talk about secure communication and transport protocol, we're talking about main methods of communications that does not give room for an attacker to, gain access to the information we're sharing. And that's where your encryption in transit comes in, so that when the communication is happening between a server and a client, there is encryption. Okay, so cryptographic algorithms are also used to protect data. And that's where you see that lock icon, data, especially data in transit, all right? And there are different secure communication protocols that are used. The most common protocol is the TLS, Transport Layer Security, okay? We will do a lab on TLS. But the most secure one is the Transport Layer Security. It used to be what we call Secure Socket Layer, SSL, but the SSL, we had SSL version 1, 2, and 3. SSL version 1, 2, and 3 are no longer secure. Now we have TLS 1.0, which is also no longer secure. Then we have 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. 1.2 and 1.3 are the most secure ones. And then, like I shared yesterday, that one of the attack types against cryptography, especially data for data in transit, is when the attackers wants to negotiate, which is the downgrade attack. They want to negotiate on less secure communication protocol. All right. We'll do we'll run a lab to see how these SSL certificates or the HTTPS, or more so call it the transport layer security protocols, actually work. The second one is IPsec. The IPsec is often used in VPN. Everybody knows what VPN is, right? I'm at home. I want to access a server in the, hold on one second. I want to access a server that is in the college data center, right? All I need to do is connect to VPN. If I look at my VPN connection, put my password and I connect, it will create a secure tunnel between, at home I use Verizon, right? Many of us use Verizon, or even if you use XP, irrespective. We're connected to the internet, but because I am using the VPN kind of is like digging a secure tunnel through the internet to the college's data center, and then it gives me an IP address from the college location, and it appears that as if I am actually in the college. That is where your IPsec comes in, is often used in VPN connections, okay? The transport layer security protocol that is most current is TLS 1.3. It's the replacement for SSL, like I said earlier. These have higher degree of protection. And we will look at when we do the lab that I shared, you will see what makes up the security of the website. The Cipher suite is one of those things that make up the security of a website. And it is a combination of the encryption, authentication, and message authentication algorithm that is used in TLS. All right, so this simply means that yes, TLS is secure, but you want to also make sure that you are using the secure Cipher suite. To make sure that you are using the secure Cipher suite in the process, all right? What I would love for us to do is to test our most visited website. So pick a website that you visit the most, and we'll analyze the certificate. We'll look at the issuer, we'll look at the encryption, we will look at the encryption strength, then you will be able to answer the question of, should I trust this site or not? Okay, so you go to SSL Lab, go to sslabs.com/SSL test, sslabs.com/SSL test. And I'm going to just test pgcc.edu's website. I'm just going to test pgcc.edu's website. Okay. And I want you to do the same for your favorite site. You will share with us the analysis of the site. Okay, you share with us the analysis of the site. So obviously, PGCC is just hosting their website on Amazon. I can see that they have 2 servers hosting this website on Amazon. Okay, so it says certificates name mismatch. Click here to ignore. Maybe it is PGCC online. Let's see. Devin, which site are you analyzing? Greg, which site are you analyzing? Hamed, which site are you analyzing? Everybody put it in chat. Type in the chat the site you are analyzing. I'm also going to try to analyze. Which site should I analyze again? Let me see. Comptia Q. Good. ADU. This was fast. This is still ongoing. So, okay, Philip is analyzing Amazon. Let me share with you the analysis of the CapTech website. So 4 things makes up the overall rating of the security of this site. The first thing is the certificate. The second thing is the protocol it supports, the key exchange, and the cipher strength. The rating often starts at A+. The rating often starts at A+. So you see the key exchange and cipher strength is at 90%. We will find out why in a moment. So it says visit our documentation page for more information, configuration guides, and books. Known issues are documented here. So it says this site works only in browsers with SNI support. This server supports TLS 1.3, which is the most recent. This server does not support post-quantum cryptographic key exchange. Guys, you remember, I think that's why it's at a 90 right now. If you remember vividly yesterday, I shared with us that post-quantum cryptography is being built to ensure that when we have quantum computers, or when we already have quantum computers, but when the quantum computers become generally accessible to everyone, especially the hackers, there will still be post-quantum cryptography that is supported, strengthening our communications. And I mentioned to you that The attackers right now, what they are doing is they are stealing the data now, even if they are unable to break it or to crack it right now, they are still stealing the data, because when quantum computers become available, it becomes easier to crack. Okay, so let's look at the certificate. The certificate is RSA 2048 certificate. So it uses SHA-256 with RSA. We see the subject, the common name, the alternative names, the serial number, the validity. It says whether it is weak, it's not weak. The issuer is GoDaddy. We see the revocation information. It's on, you can find it on GoDaddy's revocation list and go there to see whether it's been revoked or not. But we see that the revocation status says that it is good, it has not been revoked. And then we have the DNS servers, the DNS CAs, we can see that here. It's trusted, yes. Okay, so this tells us about the certificate. We don't have problem with the certificate because what? The certificate is 100%. The protocol it supports is also 100%. But where the issue is it is using some weak ciphers. So it is allowing communication of some weak ciphers. So for example, TLS, these TLS, ECDH, ERSA with AES 126 only uses 128 bits long keys. Then we have all these that are in amber, they are weak ciphers. And that is what contributed to the 90% under the cipher. Okay, that's where the issue is. If you look at this, it shows the protocols. So the protocols is also at 100%. Why? Because it only allows communication on TLS 1.3 and TLS 1.2. It does not negotiate on 1.1, 1.03, or 2. If it does, an attacker will want to perform a downgrade attack to negotiate with it on the less secure protocols. All right, but good thing it supports the more secure one. So it is pretty much the Cypher suite. And then we can see all the handshake simulation on the different browsers that are available, Chrome, yada, 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 and all those good stuff. So we could see that where the issue is more so the fact that it does not allow for post-quantum cryptography yet. A lot of websites don't at this point. And then the fact that it uses less secure cipher suite. Okay. All right, so that is it with Cypher Suite. Does anybody want to share what the rating of the website they analyzed is? What's the rating of the website that you analyzed? Let's go, let's go, let's go. Who wants to share? Philip, you analyzed Amazon. What rating was that?
It's 98.8.
98.8. What category is that? A plus?
It's a B.
It's a B. Oh, that's interesting. Mine is still loading. Ahmed is analyzing GitHub. Do you want to share with us why it is a B? I'm curious to know why it is a B.
It's
Are,
a. It's
do
the
you want me to give
protocol
you,
support is low.
are you able to share your screen?
No, this computer is kind of jacked up a little bit.
Okay. So it says the protocol is what?
Is the protocol support is low, is in the yellow line.
It's
It's
in the
like
yellow
60.
line. So go to where it says TLS 1.2, 1.3, 1.1.
Yeah, so the
Why,
TLS
which of the less secure one does it support?
it's the 1.0.
Exactly. TLS, right?
Yes, TLS 1.0.
Very good. So we could see how even if there's digital certificates is well signed in the protocol. And I'm not even kidding. When I was working for Amazon, um, this was like 2023, right? We still had servers. This is Amazon Web Services, not Amazon.com. Of course, a lot of the services are hosted in the Amazon Web Service cloud platform, right? We still had lots of customers because it's a process, right? There are so many customers, you know, millions of customers around the globe, or I would say multi customers around the globe. And it is difficult to really enforce and say, from so period, we have to start using. It's a process. I would not say it's difficult. I say it's a process to get all of the customers on board. And I remember that um, I was one of those that was assessing the TLS authentication process as part of their compliance program, and they had to run a campaign. That campaign was already running into year 2 at that time, just to support TLS 1.0. Okay, just to support TLS 1.1, to move everybody from 1.0 to 1.1. Now there is 1.2, now there is 1.3. So it's always a process and sometimes a struggle with these organizations that are so large. So I could really relate with the reason why they still support TLS 1.1, because they cannot shut off customers if they just disallow those negotiations. Okay, so I'm going to go back here. All right, so like I was saying earlier, back to still on secure communication. IPsec is one of those that is used for securing IP communication, often used in VPN connections. It provides authentication, confidentiality, and key management. And it often supports 2 encryption modes. There is the transport mode and there is the tunnel mode. Other secure protocols is the HTTPS. That's the one that you will see right in front of your URL. And the port is port 443. As security professionals, there are some ports and protocols that you should know by heart. I mean, the best way to do it is just to Google the common security ports or the common ports you should know. So port 80 is HTTP for web communication, but it's not secure. Port 443 is HTTPS. That's the secure version. We have secure shell, which is port 22. It is the secure version and an alternative to Telnet, which is port 23. So you use port 22 instead of port 23. And the SSH is often applied to other protocols like the secure multi-internet mail extension, like the SRTP protocols. They all apply SSH to make them secure. So the best thing that I would suggest that you do, because by heart there are some like you should know port 23 is a no-go because it's telnet. What does that mean? Any exchange on port 23 is used for remote access, to remotely log into. You have your computer at home, I'm here, I can remotely log into your computer. But that communication can be easily, what you call it, can be easily spoofed, right? Or an attacker can eavesdrop into that conversation because the exchange is in clear text. It does not support encryption. Instead of using port 23, you use port 22, okay? When it comes to implementing cryptography, a proper implementation is important because when cryptography is not properly implemented, it leads to vulnerability. So it is essential to understand the different options that relate the protocol part of it, the key management part of it, the cipher suite part of it, right? So, and a cryptographic algorithm in implementation is as good as the strength of the keys. What makes those cipher suites we saw earlier? Oh, this is A+. This is actually good. So what made those cipher suites we saw earlier is because of the keys that they actually use for the most part. Okay. Then the secret algorithms too, as well as the mode of operation of the cipher. Is it easily predictable? For example, RSA uses multiple prime numbers in its mathematical algorithm. So it becomes really difficult to create a pattern or to find a pattern that it will follow. So, or to conduct a statistical analysis of the algorithm. So when it comes to key strengths, randomness is very important. The length is very important. That's the length of time of which a key is used. So if you use the same key indefinitely, chances are that it could be in a code, chances are that it could have been exposed at some point or another. So so it's important to have a key management process where you rotate the keys. Then you have the length of the key. The length of the key itself. Is it a 256 bit long key, 128 bit long key? The longer the key, the more secure. The shorter the crypto period, the more secure. The more random it is, the more secure. Okay? Then the secret algorithm. Key must be kept secret. So if keys are kept secret, should algorithms also be kept secret? Or would a secret algorithm enhance security in the same way as keeping the key or password secret? No. For cryptography to be useful, it needs to be widespread so that it can allow for existing users and researchers to look into it. In fact, the military force that use cryptography, they say must allow many users. They enforce that many users must know of its existence. So when it comes to cryptographic algorithm, it should never be a thing of security by obscurity. It should never be a thing of security by obscurity. Everyone needs to be aware of it so that if it is weak, the weakness can be easily called out and brought to light. Okay? All right. Questions before we continue? Okay. So if you remember yesterday when we were talking about ciphers, we talked about block ciphers and stream cipher. And I said that stream cipher is when encryption is applied character by character, while block cipher mode of operation is when an entire block of plain text is operated upon per time. So it's not character by character, but a block. And each block is encrypted independently. So a block cipher mode of operation specifies how ciphers should handle these blocks. Some of the most common block cipher is the electronic code book, cipher book chaining, cipher block chaining, and the counter, and then we also have the GCM. These are different block cipher mode that exist. Okay. So question, I believe this is a final question of the day, unless you guys have a question for me. Which of the following is the most comprehensive secure communication and transport protocol? Most comprehensive secure communication and transport protocol. SSL, TLS, IPsec, HSS. Which one? That will be IPsec, right? Because IPsec provides TLS as well. So it provides all the functions of a TLS. It also provides authentication. It provides encapsulation and everything that has to do with TCP/IP protocol. IPsec is essentially protecting it in communication, okay, or during communication. So we've covered that. I want you to go back and rate yourself. We've covered digital certificates, the different components of the public key infrastructure. We've talked about secure communication and transport protocols, and we've also explained how to implement cryptography and the key things that make a cryptographic algorithm really secure. So tomorrow we're going to cover endpoint vulnerabilities, attacks, and defenses. So everything that has to do with endpoint vulnerabilities of your mobile devices, of your laptops, all the endpoint related issues. We're going to talk about how they can get attacked and what to do to defend your endpoint from EDRs to anti-malware to baseline configuration, server hardening, and all those good stuff. Before we call it a day, what are your questions? What are your questions? What are your questions? All right, if there are no, go ahead.
Sorry, it's not really a question per se because I'm having an issue with one of the assignments on Cengage. I sent you
Okay,
an email about it. It's assignment, the live virtual machine 3.1. When I try to click on it, it just shows an error message.
okay. This one.
Yes.
Okay, it doesn't show an error message for me.
I mean, when I click start assignment,
Okay, let me do that assignment now.
oh, I don't know why it shows an error for me.
Okay, let me see what I could do about that. Give me one moment. Mm.